Yeah,
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 39 of the All in Football Fantasy Premier League podcast show. I'm your host, the FPL guru, self-proclaimed Alex Rex, and joining me today are the usual suspects of Scott Williams and Tom Hughes. And for all you YouTube watchers, you might have got Scott accidentally talking over the start of that, but for podcast listeners, I'll have slickly edited that out, I hope. Scotty, how are you doing today?
yeah, I'm all right. I'm clearly really excited to get talking about confusing matters in fantasy football.
Absolutely. Tommy boy, nice to actually have you with us. Thank you so much for taking your time out of your busy schedule and your abroad business trips. I know, honestly.
You're welcome. Pleasure to be here. I don't think you class Coventry as abroad, even though it is like a different world. But
I would just like to congratulate Alex. You didn't get a red arrow last week, mate. Well done.
I actually got a green arrow because some people had taken -4s around me and then there were no games.
We got a green arrow.
Come on, that's brilliant. Still not doing. Still not at the top.
Yes, I went green arrow as well. Fantastic.
Still didn't break the 5 million barrier, but never mind. It is what it is. I was really hoping last week would, give me a good boost, but never mind. So thank you ever so much for tuning in, everybody. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and also follow us on our social media platforms on Football Pod and on Football P on Twitter. Oh, we started well.
That's your spot one on that YouTube video.
The whole thing's getting edited at this point, isn't
it? In Instagram and TikTok. Let's just crack on, shall we? Honestly, the start of this podcast has gone as well as this fixture schedule's gone, really, hasn't it? Let's be honest. So, game week 7 was cancelled because of the passing of Her Majesty the Queen. So we now have an entire game week to fit in further down the line. And also we've had some other postponements for game week 8, which are Chelsea, Liverpool, Brighton, Crystal Palace, which was cancelled anyway, and Manchester United against Leeds. So we still have 7 fixtures for this week, but it's really thrown up the conversation of should we wildcard or shouldn't we? And it's obviously team dependent. But I'm going to try and help you guys run through a process that I've done which I did last night to see if I was going to wildcard or not. And I've decided I am going to wildcard. And I've clicked the button. Wildcard siren. No siren.
There you go.
Thank you very much, Tom. Wildcard siren. Click the wildcard button. And I'm going to show you guys how I got there. But first of all, what I want to do is just to try and quickly cover off what's on the screen here for YouTube watchers, which is the schedule and how it can work moving forward in terms of fitting in the fixtures. So we had a full game week cancelled, and of the fixtures that are in the full game week, the majority of them had teams that play in Europe in them. And also, all the fixtures that are cancelled in game week 8, 2 of them, of the 3, have teams that play in Europe in them. So it is impossible with the fixture schedule that's in front of us to be able to fit in those games prior to the World Cup. They can't be rescheduled before the World Cup. There are only a handful of games that can be fit in before the World Cup happens. So those games are Bournemouth against Brighton. Again, these are all just the ones who don't have European football. Leeds against Nottingham Forest, Leicester against Aston Villa, Southampton, Brentford, and then the Brighton and Crystal Palace games. So those are the only ones that can get slotted in before the World Cup. Only one of those games, I think, was scheduled for TV. I'm not sure if Brighton Palace was, but because that is a big derby, so it might have been. But I don't know if that was going to be on TV or not. But the only game of those that was scheduled for TV that was Leeds against Forest, which was for Monday Night Football. So the other 3 games, Bournemouth against Brighton, Leicester against Aston Villa, and Southampton against Brentford, were never going to be televised anyway, so it could quite easily clash with the European games, and it wouldn't really matter. So those 3 games realistically can be slotted in before into game weeks. The other option that I think a lot of people are thinking is going to happen is that the entire game week is going to be put into one of the vacant midweeks. There are only 3 vacant midweeks for the rest of the season. So game week 29, game week 33, and game week 37. Now, game week 29 is basically reserved for all of the fixtures that don't take place in game week 28, because that's going to be a blank game week, because the FA Cup quarterfinals are going to happen that week. Game week 33 is reserved for all the fixtures that don't happen in game week 32 when the FA Cup semi-finals happen. So the only full free blank game week that's left for the entirety of the rest of the season, unless they change the fixture schedule and calendar, is game week 37. So if they want them to play all together in one game week without changing the schedule, it's going to have to be game week 37, because that's the only time they can actually fit the entirety of the fixtures into one solid block. So if they don't drip feed them, it has to be there, or they're going to be cancelling either 3rd round or 4th round replays, or making the League Cup into a semi-final into a 1-legged tie rather than a 2-legged tie. So those are the other options. That's the other option, really. If they get rid of the replays, 3rd round replays potentially, or they make the semi-finals into one leg, then it'll be a full double game week in game week either 20 or 21, or potentially 22 if they get rid of round 4 replays. So 20, 21 or 22, which will be after the unlimited transfers in game week 17.
They've announced today they're not going to do that, Alex. Just say
yes,
that's what round.
I was getting to on Sky Sports. They said today they had the interview with the fixture guy, Rob Dawson, I can't remember, but they basically said that they're not going to get rid of the replays. So it's looking like the only option, if they're going to play the full game week together, is going to be if they make the League Cup into a 1-legged semi-final tie. Funnily enough, that'll mean that there's the biggest double game week we've ever had in game week 21. It'll be the biggest double game week we've ever had anyway, wherever we are. So save your bench boost for that. But ironically, the reverse fixtures of all of those games happen in game week 22. So we'll have Man City play Tottenham at home, followed by Tottenham away, back to back in terms of games, which I'm not sure how much the Premier League really want that to happen. So there's a lot to figure out. The other games will just get slotted in when they can do. So, for example, the Chelsea-Liverpool game, that won't happen before the World Cup, neither will the United-Leeds. The likelihood is they'll happen in one of the blank game weeks to come, or potentially when there's a 4th round replays or 3rd round replays, when there's actually going to just be a space, because they might not play a 3rd round or 4th round replay. So realistically, there's only 3 games that can get rescheduled before the World Cup. So I've covered all that off to start with. And actually, what that all means, if you switched off throughout that entire process of me telling you all of that information, is you basically don't need to give a monkey's about it, because you're going to have unlimited transfers after the World Cup to sort out and plan for all those fixtures. And the 6 teams that might have double game weeks, it all really doesn't matter that much, because they're not like, top tier teams that you're going to triple captain anyone for. The only other blank that's now occurred is Man City against Arsenal has been cancelled for game week 12, because Arsenal against PSV Eindhoven is going to be put, I don't know what the right English is, into that space. So that's the only game that, again, it's going to be cancelled, and it's not going to be rescheduled until much further down the line. So when you are planning your wildcard teams potentially, or your transfers, just remember that if you are going to triple up on City and have Arsenal players, then you won't be able to put out a full team and a full squad. Lads, did you follow me through that? Did you understand that well? Any questions on that other people listening to this podcast might have?
None of it seems urgent.
Correct, Tom. None of it does. But for all of you guys that were interested, that's how it's all going to work. So, quick poll. Who's on a wild card on this podcast right now? The podcast listeners, me and Tom put our hands up. And Scott is undecided. So let's have a look at the fixture ticker and let's take a look at the process behind deciding if we're going to wildcard or not. So I've got here the fixture rankings on the screen from game week 8 to game week 16. So we're having a look at who's got the best fixture run versus the worst fixture run. So the teams at the top, Bournemouth at the top, Fulham, West Ham, Newcastle, Everton, Villa, and then it goes down to Spurs, Leicester, Nottingham Forest and Palace. So a lot of the big teams, mostly because they have blanks, are a little bit further down this list. But there are teams up here at the moment that I don't think will have a lot of players for at this very moment in time. So, for example, if you're looking at Fulham, you want probably Pereira and Mitrovic. West Ham are an interesting one because they still haven't really shown a lot of form. Did you watch them in Europe, Scott? I know you're a bit of a secret hammer.
No, I didn't. I was too busy losing football in real life to see him on last Thursday. They played all right from what I heard. I think Bowen looked all right.
He scored a penalty, didn't he? Which is interesting. So maybe potentially he's going to be on penalties. Hopefully that's going to help him break it up. But I've seen a lot of wildcard drafts with Jared Bowen in.
I think people have been banging about Poqueta quite a lot as well.
Okay. That's he's what's he, 6 million fantasy?
6 million, yeah.
Yeah, you see. So we've got potential in terms of opportunities there. So you can have a look at these fixtures, and I think we're going to see quite a few teams here that, first of all, aren't in Europe. So we don't need to worry too much about rotation because there's only one Premier League midweek from now until the World Cup. So, for example, I've seen a lot of wildcard teams. Currently, my wildcard draft has triple Newcastle.
Yeah.
And it has double Fulham. And it also has double Leicester. So, and a Forest player. So we've got quite
double Leicester defence again, Alex.
Absolutely not. There'll be no accidental double Leicester defence from me this time. That was a tragic mistake. Poor James Justin. But yes, and I've also got a Crystal Palace player. And so I've tried to go for a team that has a lower risk of rotation, and also looking at the fixtures, it seems like that's something that's going to be relatively positive. But so what we're going to do here in the pod, because at the moment I'm doing just a hell of a lot of talking, is I'm just going to show you through the process of how I went about deciding I was going to wildcard or not, and I'm going to do it by having a look at the pod team, and we're going to do that. Do it ourselves, basically. We're going to do that analysis ourselves. So I had a look at, we've got 2 free transfers here with the podcast team, and I had a look at what transfers I could make this week, because I'm not going to be looking at taking hits realistically, and potentially a -4 maybe, but I don't think taking any more than a -4 is worthwhile just for one game week. And I'd have a look at the team that I'd be able to put together by only doing that, and I compared it to the team that I could use when I was wildcarding. So, for example, with the podcast team, let's have a look at the picking team. So, the team that we would have to start, we would have Ward in goal, Soufal, Perisic, and Williams. We'd have Martinelli and De Bruyne, and then we'd have Jesus, Tony, and Haaland. So, with 2 free transfers, we can get 11 players out this week. So if we wanted to do it, and also 11 players that should start. So, but what I will say is then, I then compared those 11 players to what team I would put out if I was wildcarding and how different they'd be, and I made them play each other. So for me, my debate was, and this was the four comparisons I had. So I want you boys to chip in and tell me which one you think is the best pick out of these 2, right? Okay. So I had Nick Pope at home against Bournemouth. I think it was at home against Bournemouth versus Ward against Spurs away.
Yeah, Nick Pope.
Yeah. Nick Pope. Tom, concur. 1-0 to Pope. I had James Maddison against Spurs, and then had Anthony Gordon against, should have prepared that, Anthony Gordon against West Ham.
Gordon for me.
Yeah, Gordon, Tom?
Yeah,
But more,
probably edges. Yeah,
but
maybe.
more of a debate, right? Okay,
Yeah,
so
More
Gordon,
of a debate. I mean, I'm only going Gordon because Everton are
Yeah.
at home, Leicester are away.
Yeah.
Great. Then I had Mitrovic against Jesus. So Mitrovic away at Forest versus Jesus away at Brentford.
Go Mitrovic for that.
Mitrovic, Tom?
Jesus for me.
Jesus,
Still.
okay, fine. So Mitrovic and Jesus. And then I had Ivan Toney at home against Arsenal versus Harry Kane at home against Leicester.
Harry Kane.
So Kane?
Yeah, Kane.
Yeah, Kane. So what that, and again, quite close. So those were the only 4 players that I'd have different to what my wildcard team would have been. So if I didn't wildcard, I'd take a -4 to have Ward, Gordon, Jesus, and Kane, which Tom had just narrowly 3-1 better. And I had it 2 each, by the way. And Scott, you had it 2 each. Pope against Pope, Maddison, Mitrovic, and Toney. Now, actually, I'm probably not going to go Toney against Brentford. Arsenal, I'm actually probably going to go Isak now. That's who I was going to go. But still, it's probably just Harry Kane, isn't it? So I basically would have had a team that I expected to get very similar points from, but I was going to have to take a -4 hit from. And also, a lot of these players are going to go up in team value. So what I decided to do then was to save the points hit, because I can't afford to lose any more points. I decided to invest in the team in terms of the team value and put out a team that actually I think was going to do exactly the same as the squad that I was going to put out anyway using free transfers and taking a hit. So I decided then I was going to wildcard. So what I'd encourage you to do is have a look at your team of what you would have if you were wildcarding versus your team you were going to have this week and see what you could get to and see what team you prefer. And for me, they were basically exactly the same in terms of what I would prefer, and I didn't have to take a point set. Does that make sense? Because I've tried to go through what was in my head.
Yeah, I think so. I think I've looked at the fixtures and I've gone for start of the season quite a standard team. And I think I'm looking at the fixtures thinking the fixtures are turning a bit. Like I was saying to you, I want to get rid of my Liverpool assets. They've got a really tough run of games and they blank this week, of course. They're not playing against Chelsea this weekend and they're not playing well. Salah's not playing well. Diaz not playing well. Trent's defensively horrendous. And I want to look at more of those Newcastle players, like you say, and look at more maybe Crystal Palace assets as well. So for me, it's like I can get 9 players out this week. I have 2 free transfers. I can get 11 out and not wildcard. But actually, I would ideally, I want to change like 6, 7 players because of the fixtures and the form as well. Like I want to jump on people that are doing well. I think it's important that you do that.
So I really like the additional of what you've said there. So currently I've got my wildcard team on the screen. So the additional to that is I've not just got the same starting lineup, but I've also prepared my team in the background for the future. So on my wildcard draft, I'll have also brought in Reece James and Wilfred Zaha. And also I've got James Maddison there for the future as well. But James and Zaha were the 2 players, again, I want to get ahead of the curve with. So to try and get these guys. And even though they blank this game week, these are the players that I would have brought into my team. Now, for podcast listeners, my wildcard draft at the moment, and I'll tell you which ones are nailed on in here and then which ones are a bit more fluid. So I've got Pope and Ward as my goalkeepers. Then I've got Cancelo, Reece James, Trippier, and then I've got Fofana and Nico Williams. I've got Kevin De Bruyne, James Maddison, Wilfred Zaha, Martinelli, and Andreas Pereira. And then I've got Haaland, Isak, and Mitrovic up top. Now, the players that are nailed in this team are Pope and Ward. I'm having them as my goalkeepers, without a shadow of a doubt. Cancelo and Trippier, they're nailed in the team. Nico Williams is nailed in this team as well, because I think he's the best 4 million option. I know there's been a few people throwing Emerson around and Patterson around, but Emerson does have European football. Remember that. There might be some rotation. You want that 4 million option to play every week because they're just going to sit on your bench and they're probably only going to get a couple of points for you. But that's why I think Williams is just the more solid option. Emerson potentially can get you more points. I understand that. I don't think it's a wrong move, but Williams is nailed for me. And I'm going to have a Chelsea defender. So that's what I'm at the back there. So there's still chance for a change of one of those people. I'm going to have Kevin De Bruyne because I've wildcarded this week. If I'd have wildcarded next week, I'd have considered Raheem Sterling. That's for sure. Wilfried Zaha, I'm going to have in this team. I say I'm going to have in this team. He's pretty much nailed. But the only real midfielder that's nailed there is De Bruyne. And then up front, Haaland and Mitrovic are nailed. Again, not moving those guys around. Could be another striker. Isak, Tony. Could even go someone like bloody Solanke if you wanted to. A little bit more value, but I wouldn't. I think it's going to be basically it's Isak versus Tony for me. I've seen as well, just before I get your reactions to this, guys, and your thoughts, is I've seen a lot of people go for Harry Kane up front instead of Isak and then take De Bruyne out of the midfield. The biggest problem you've got with that is in game week 12, Liverpool's fixtures do turn. So Liverpool from game week 12 have West Ham, Forest, Leeds, Spurs and Southampton to finish off. But West Ham, Forest and Leeds as 3 fixtures for an example. I don't really want to go without Salah and Trent. Man City blank in game week 12. I can very much see myself going the Cancelo and De Bruyne to Trent and Salah in game week 12 sort of move if I needed to at that point, obviously form pending. But I want to be able to make those moves quickly, whereas if you've got Haaland and Kane, your route to Salah and your route to any premium midfielder really is very, very, very difficult. But lads, initial thoughts on my wildcard draft. Tom, how different is it to yours, of course, as well? I would like to ask.
I've got one goalkeeper that you do, 3 defenders, four defenders that you do, 2 midfielders and 2 forwards.
Are they the nailed ones that I talked about, basically? Or have you got a different midfielder?
I've got Martinelli and KDB.
Okay. So you've got the one nailed midfielder. I'm guessing you've got Haaland and Mitrovic?
I have got Haaland and Isaac.
Oh, no Mitro. Exciting. Okay.
I'm guessing you've got Jesus.
I have.
Yes.
Do you know what? Jesus has been so good for Arsenal. I don't like the idea of taking him out, even though fixtures turned down for them a bit, because
I think with Jesus as well, you've got like what Mo Salah usually gives us every season. It looks amazing every time Jesus gets the ball this season, doesn't he? It looks like he's going to do something. So if you're watching him, we watch football, he's exciting, isn't he?
Also, Brentford do have a tendency to concede a couple of goals. I know they smashed us the other day, but they still concede goals. I don't know. I just think I don't like the idea of taking Jesus out. He's done nothing to justify being taken out of that team, basically. And
also his ownership is scary high.
Yeah. And I'd be tempted to sacrifice Isaac for Mitrovic. I think it's a flip between those two for me, but at the moment I can't see the decision being made for me in Haaland and Jesus coming out of that team. I think they're almost dead certs for me in those forward positions.
Yeah,
Isn't it amazing that we've got no Liverpool players in there?
It is. But that's where we talk about form and also a fixture, isn't it, at the end of the day? Fixtures aren't amazing. I mean, they're not terrible, but they're not amazing. What I would say, Tom, is I think if I was going to go front 3, Haaland, Jesus, I think Mitrovic is basically nailed in my team. I think if I was going to go between Mitrovic and Isak, I'd go Mitrovic. I'll be honest, I don't even think it's that close for me.
I don't know. I just feel like I know he started amazingly, but can he keep that goal scoring form up? And
absolutely not. He's going to let us down.
Newcastle overall are the better team, and I think we'll get more chances. Bearing in mind he's only had 2 games. Yeah. Maybe 1. I can't remember. But he's not played a lot, so we don't really know how he's going to be. But he looked very sharp in that Liverpool game.
I think just looking at the only thing for me on Jesus is just the next couple of fixtures are really tough, like Brentford away.
Yeah.
Really, really tough game. Spurs at home, massive, obviously, North London derby. Liverpool at home, really tough game. And then it's down as a green, but I never think Leeds away is an easy game. Sunday, 16th October at 2 p.m. I'm assuming that could be on TV. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think that's a really, really tough game. I think Ellen Road is a really tough game for anyone to come to. So that's why and Mitrovic, like we said, he looks the real deal this year. But I agree. I agree. Hey, but Jesus has looked amazing every time I've seen him play. He just looks so good.
So I think then in that case, when we're looking at, for example, the podcast team that I'll go back to in a second. Well, obviously I'll have a look at the transfers. By the sounds of it, we're pretty convinced that it's going to be a Haaland between the three of us, Haaland, Mitrovic, and Jesus front three. Then from a vote between us. Whilst I go stop sharing screen and go back to the podcast team, now we're going to have a look at our wildcard team and really start debating positions for the rest of the podcast before we do the fixture and the captains. We've just talked about Jesus there. Now I've got Martinelli in my team still rather than Jesus. And Martinelli, it's only mostly because of the value in him. And I can't think of another midfielder that I'd rather have at that price point. I'm really struggling to almost like justify taking him out for almost the same reasons, but I can't think of them. But I don't know any other midfielders in that bracket looking at the fixtures.
I think
you'd be looking at. So I know Scott's going to say what I was going to say. Go on, Scott.
I was just going to say you up until Potter went to Chelsea, you'd be looking at Brighton assets, but you don't want to go on them now.
Yeah.
That's it.
I think we have to. I want to reiterate your point again because it's a mistake I've made in the past where I've gone, I freed up this money because I've got rid of a massive midfielder. I think in the past it's been Bruno Fernandes. I'm like, I've got this money now to spend up front, and then Bruno's come on form. I can't just do a straight swap because I've gone up front. I've gone for a high striker, so that's why for me, you've always got to keep that Salah money in midfield if you can, because let's be honest, he can hit ridiculous form at any point, and just to do one transfer from a Kevin De Bruyne to a Salah, it just saves you so much pain.
I completely agree, and also he scored in the Champions League midweek. He can definitely deliver. So from a wildcard perspective, Tom, you're interested me to say you only have one goalkeeper. Was it Pope or just Ward? Who was the keeper you had?
I had Pope.
Okay. So we're both agreed on Pope. And did you have Everson with him then?
I had him with Sanchez.
Ooh, okay. What are you thinking about fixture rotation? Because I think, was it 11, 13 and 16? They didn't have the easiest fixtures. Newcastle, that's really sad. I remember that. That's why I do a podcast, isn't it? Brentford, they do. Then it's Man City, it clashes. But then Villa. So game week 13, Sanchez has City, and game week 13 Pope has Spurs away. So I suppose you go Spurs, obviously you go Pope in that one though, wouldn't you? I know that's not a great rotation then too. The other two fixtures were quite a good rotation, but game week 13 feels a bit filthy. Whereas Ward in game week 11
but Leicester doesn't matter. They're going to concede in every single one of those games.
Yeah, but when they settle with Brendan and they get a new manager bounce for game week 9, they'll be fine. They can't continue to be this bad, surely. But they might do. Game week 11, Palace at home. Then game week 13 is Wolves away, and then game week 16, to be fair, is West Ham away. So that's not the best rotation. So if you wanted to spend the money on it, fair enough. But we're both agreed that Nick Pope is the right goalkeeper in terms of our defenders. I think we both all agreed that Trent is probably somebody that will come out of our teams. We can go for the cheaper option at the back and ignore Cancelo, even though he's been a top performing defender. And we can go. I mean, I think as well, Kieran Trippier is somebody that basically has to be nailed in wildcard teams. It depends. We could stick with Perisic if we wanted to do so as well, but we could go with Cancelo. So immediately we already have this debate. So it's going to be if we wildcard, it's going to be Nick Pope, and if we don't, then it's Ward. If we wildcard, it's going to be Mitrovic. If we don't, it's Tony. So we've got, again, this is where we're building the debate and trying to go through the process. If we wildcard, are we thinking about dropping Diaz?
Yeah.
Diaz out. If we wildcard again, we would obviously, I'm guessing, we'd drop Harrison and we'd drop Gross.
Yep.
Yeah.
Martinelli's an interesting debate, but we'll come back to him. In terms of then central midfielders, I genuinely think these three positions can almost be anybody within reason. Like I really like the Zaha run. No game, obviously game week 8, Chelsea game week 9 at home, new manager bounce, difficult. But then from game week 10 through to game week, 18 actually, but 16, his fixtures are incredible. Leeds at home, Leicester away, Wolves at home, Everton away, Southampton at home, West Ham away, and Forest away. And I think Zaha looks incredible this season. So we don't have to have him now. We could wait until game week 10 to bring him in. But that again, you could have somebody like that in there to start with. Let's have a look at the FDR. So for fixture difficulty rating, no Bournemouth midfielders stand out. Only Pereira for Fulham in terms of bargain because he's cheap. We've talked about Bowen. Bowen could be someone that we take a punt on. He's now down to 8.1 million. It's someone that we could look at. So if we've got him as a potential option. Newcastle midfielders, I've seen a couple of St. Maximans. I think Bruno Guimaraes, whatever he's called, is coming back. So we could go for a Newcastle central midfielder as an option. We've got the 13 million valued Anthony Gordon brought into this podcast. So he's somebody. Do we trust Villa?
No
Villa assets. No one from Spurs because we can't trust Sonny at the moment, which is a shame. I've seen a few Son drafts in there instead of KDB, so I don't really get.
They obviously know much about football than people.
Don't understand it at all. Leicester midfielders, we've got Maddison, Barnes as options. Now they've obviously got a tougher game this week against Spurs. Once that game week has happened, Forest, Bournemouth, Palace, Leeds, Wolves, and then you do have Man City game week 14, but then Everton and West Ham till the end of the run. So I do feel like a Leicester midfielder is something that we should have in this team. I'd be pushing for Maddison. We could go for another option though as well. What are your thoughts on Leicester?
I like him. Just don't like Leicester this year.
No. Maddison 7.9, Barnes 6.9.
What's he been up to then, Maddison?
Let's have a look. He's played well. He's played 5 games this season. He returned in all the first 3, and then he's not returned against Man United and Brighton. Played 90 minutes in both. But he returned in his first 3, then he missed the Chelsea game. Rumour has it is he's had a knock in those last 2 matches because, that's Maddison for you all day long. He's a potential option. But what I'm getting at here is obviously we're trying to build this team in midfield. It's a real struggle with midfielders, isn't it?
I would verge on. I agree. I would verge on a cheaper one just to give us that flexibility and leave some money in the bank if Maddison comes hot. I know it's weird. I'd rather have Gordon in than Maddison right now.
Yeah, well, in terms of Gordon's fixture, so again, West Ham, Southampton, Man United, Spurs, and Newcastle's quite difficult. Palace, Fulham, Leicester, and Bournemouth. If we had, for example,
just looking at if you go back to that fixture ticker, the sort of the Gordon Maddison debate. If we left some money in there, obviously we could then move when Man United hits, but then Leicester hit Bournemouth, Palace, Leeds, Wolves. You could just swap them.
I like the look at the move to Palace. At that point, we could go Gordon then to Zaha, couldn't we?
Yeah.
Then that's an option because then their fixtures really start to run hot. So
again, just with the eye test, Gordon just looks every time I've seen him. And Everton have not necessarily looked good, but Gordon I think's looked good in pretty much every game. I'm clearly the biggest Gordon fan on this pod. I go on about him every week.
What I do think as well we can do. Yes, you do. I love how much you love him. What we can do with this team here as well, though, by the way, is if we go Martinelli, Pereira, Gordon, this other position, we can try and push that differential and go for Raheem. Now, Sterling's fixtures, obviously blank, but then Palace, Wolves, Villa, Brentford, Man United, Brighton, Arsenal, obviously 13, 14, 15, not that easy, and Newcastle 16. But the run, Palace, Wolves, Villa, and Brentford, 9 through 12. And then that is also another premium midfielder from game week 13 or 12 or 13 for us to be able to get off and to be able to get on Salah. So he does secure a little bit of value. And then, for example, if we took Fofana out, we could stick Reece James in instead of Fofana, and then we still have 0.5 million in the bank. So this is another opportunity. I mean, I don't mind holding on to Soufal at all. I think looking as well at their fixtures, I think they look pretty good. But we could go for a team with this sort of structure if we wanted to do as an option. The point that I'm making, again, if I'm just going to write these down, Andreas, so that'd be Pereira. Tom, if you don't mind filling for 30 seconds, just going to write this down. This is where you panic. Look at him, panic, absolutely panic. It's not easy running a podcast to keep it talking.
Well, no, you've made me start looking at things. That's all it was. I had my draft of my fantasy team done on my phone before we came onto this podcast, and all those things you've just talked about. But I was just looking at Saint Maximin and trying to find out whether he's actually going to be fit, because he was obviously injured, because he's always injured. Mm-hmm. But they're saying that he's not got a muscle pull; it's just a bit of swelling. So hopefully it won't be too long. But that's the only thing that puts me off about Saint Maximin. Thinking about him is he's injured all the time. He's fit for 2 games, injured for 3, and it just makes it a bit of a nightmare.
I've wildcarded while we've been doing this draft as well.
This is what you do, Alex. Cause more questions.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not helping, am I?
Yeah, well, I wanted to mix my team up anyway, to be honest with you. I think it's the play. I feel quite rejuvenated to not have Mohamed Salah in my team. And do you know what's the easiest thing? You all agree with me, lads, that because we're all taking Salah out, right? We've all took him out.
Yeah.
We don't even have to worry about this weekend. It's not even playing.
It does make you feel good, doesn't it?
Yeah. And I'll be honest, he scored last night. Watched the game. Looked about as good as he's done all season.
Yeah.
And that's not very good. He didn't look on it. I thought Diaz looked slightly better than him. But yeah, he didn't look particularly. His finish was very good, but he didn't look great. But yeah, I think it is important to bear Liverpool in mind. We're all talking about drafts with no Liverpool, maybe no Spurs, no Man United players. It's interesting. All them teams can come really good, and we really are utilising the sort of the mid-table teams really at the minute, aren't we?
Absolutely. What we'll say again, so what we would do with the pod team, for an example, is we'd take Trent out, for an example, and we'd probably put, like, let's just say, I think Trippier probably would come in. Let's just say if we were looking at not wildcarding, Trips would come in, and then we'd have to get rid of a midfielder. So we'd obviously go for the most expensive one that we're going to get rid of anyway, which would be Luis Diaz, and we'd have £10 million to spend on a midfielder. I don't really know what midfielder we would go for this week.
How much did you say we have?
We'd have 10.4 on the midfielder.
Maybe Bernardo Silva.
So, for example, let's say we go Bernardo then. Ooh. So we would have a team that would start of Ward in goal. So it'd be Ward versus Pope. So Pope wins that one, as we've already discussed. It would be, I'm trying to follow this. So Soufal would play, Perisic would play, Nico Williams would play. So it would be Trippier versus, let me try and figure this one out. I'll need to figure it out as we go here. But it'd be Trippier. Who would they replace in that team? Oh, because we didn't even nail down our midfielders, did we? It might be Trippier against, like, I'd be himself because he was going to be in our team anyway. That's what's confused me. We're going to put him in my wildcard team anyway. What an idiot. He was going to be in our wildcard team anyway. So it'd be like Anthony Gordon against Bernardo. So Bernardo plays Wolves, and Anthony Gordon plays West Ham. So I'm guessing it probably would be just Bernardo.
I'd get out there 2-1 there, wouldn't I?
Probably just. To be fair, I'm not. Bernardo's a bit there or there.
I'd rather have Joao Cancelo and then Bernardo, to be honest.
Okay, but Cancelo would have to come in for. Would have to play. Let's just do that. Hold on. Restore player. Cancelo would. How much do we need? 7.1. Yeah, we can't afford Trips and Cancelo to come in if we did free transfers only.
All right. Okay.
So the long story short is we're already 2-1 ahead with the wildcard team, break even on the other one, and we're undecided on the other one, on the other position. So it's 2-1 ahead, and we get the team value, and we may as well then plan for moving forward. I mean, we could take some punts, and we'd lose the team value potentially about the players that we want to bring in. But again, it's kind of potato with this one because we kind of don't need a -4. If we did Cancelo and a -4, like then we could potentially go for like, you know, well, the main person we must get in this squad for Scott is Anthony Gordon. So if we went for Everton, this is great for podcast listeners. This one, Gordon. So then the team that would start this week for us would be Ward, Cancelo, Trippier, Williams, Perisic, Soufal, Martinelli, Gordon, De Bruyne, and then it would be we wouldn't have Williams. It would be Ward, Cancelo, Trippier, Perisic, Soufal, Martinelli, Gordon, De Bruyne, Jesus, Tony, and Haaland, and that's who we would have starting. And realistically, in terms of the changes, it would be Gordon against Gordon. It would be Cancelo against Pereira. Yeah, it would be 3-1. It'd be 3. Wouldn't it be 3-1? Yeah, it would. It'd be 3-1 to wildcard him.
Yeah.
So you run the exercise and then you decide what you want to do. As horrendously explained as that was by me, so I hope you all followed it in some way, shape, or form. A couple of quick bits of advice: don't free hit; you'll need it later. And if you're trying to save your wild card for the sake of taking -4s and -8s this week, don't just use it, because you're going to get unlimited transfers for game week 17 anyway. So you might as well attack this moment at this point. I think the wild card is going to be ridiculously heavily used this week. I think it's going to be a bit mad how much it's going to be used, to be honest with you.
Especially with the unlimited transfers pro. If we don't have a World Cup, I think we're on a different story, aren't we? But
I think I probably would take a -4 this week.
You're literally just wildcarding to get through to November the whatever, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm almost certain here I'd be -4 without it. So, Tom, any changes to your team? You know, obviously you're having a really good hard look at it there, and I'm intrigued to know what's going through your mind. So
I've changed it all, yeah.
Yeah, tell the listeners. Tell us what you're thinking.
I don't know. You've put me off Jesus.
Which I've done well.
Yeah. You've put me off Jesus. I'm annoyed about that because I was like, why would I touch him? And now I'm like, no, maybe I shouldn't. I don't know.
I'm shocked. I'm shocked you've got Jesus in there. I really am.
You're shocked I've got one of the best forwards this season in there. Honestly. Oh, bloody hell. And now you've made me... I was always going Isaac over Mitrovic, but now I'm thinking Mitrovic allows me to get Saint-Maximin in.
I would Saint-Max in. Wow.
I really like Saint-Maximin when he's playing, but like I say, I don't know if he's going to be fit or not. Why do I come on this podcast? Honestly, it just makes me more confused.
Well, we know you listen to it anyway, mate. So it don't matter if you're on it or not.
Confused. So what I would say is this wildcard team for the pod that we've just put together now, and obviously we'll have a quick chat about it afterwards anyway, I'm sure. But Pope and Ward, we've got Reece James, Trippier, Perisic, Soufal, and Williams. Obviously, Soufal can change, of course, for all these reasons. I've left him in there for now anyway. De Bruyne, Sterling, Martinelli, Gordon, and Pereira, Haaland, Jesus, and Mitrovic. As we've run through it, none of those players are wrong. Anybody from there that makes you go like, I don't like that, or I want to get rid of him, or anything along those lines. No,
I'm not that convinced with Perisic at the minute, but yeah.
Or Koupal.
Perisic only because I think Perisic is brilliant, but I'm not. I just get that rotation. It scares me.
I don't mind throwing in like a Saliba for a Perisic to free up money, if I'm being honest, just because you know he's going to play and Arsenal keeps a clean sheet.
Yeah.
You know what I like to do as well, like maybe have a look at a team that's not playing in Europe, and somebody, for an example, who's got a good run of fixtures is like Joachim Andersen. He's a player that frees up some money.
It's always the bait, though, isn't it?
What do you mean? What's the bait? Is Diaz?
It's the bait. It's the bait. Oh, he's got good fixtures. Just because he's got good fixtures. Remember, we go with form players. See, that's why I'm keeping Jesus in. I've gone full circle now.
You know that he's got 6 and 7 points in 2 of his last 3 games. Anderson.
Yeah,
okay, and one was against
got 19 points in the entire season, Alex.
Yeah, but he hits Diags like no one's business.
He's averaging 2 points a game, pretty much. Like that's nothing to. I can get a 4 million player.
He's averaged 5 points a game the last 3. Just saying. But anyway, that's another option, isn't it? For
he's
another
going to
player
get 70 points now, isn't he?
Maybe. But it's another option. I think we really want to try and be able to get to like Zaha though in this team. So I'm quite conscious of trying to make sure we've got money in the bank as well with it. Because I think we want to get to Zaha from Gordon, didn't we? That's what we said. In 2 weeks' time. So we kind of need to almost save the money to be able to do it. So these are other options. We could just go for someone like Fofana. So from a Chelsea perspective, we had him already anyway. So it won't be that many changes. But I think then if we got them 3 all play, them 4 all play, no, we can take that as long as this player plays, then which Soufal does. We could go really cheap. We could go for the Emerson gamble and go for somebody who's really cheap if you wanted to go for something along those lines. But anyway, I'm conscious that we've rambled on about our team a lot. Hopefully those ideas have given you guys some sort of form of thought process towards how you're going to go about attacking this week. But I do think the majority of people are just going to end up wildcarding, to be honest.
I think if you do what I did and do your transfers and say, I don't mind making -4. Look at your team and go, I wish I could get that player. I wish I could get. If you wish, just wildcard.
Yeah.
Unless you're Cully Singh-Mathuru, who's not got a wildcard left.
Well, I think it's interesting because someone like Cully who doesn't have a wildcard. So if just for the fun of it, let's have a look at his team, shall we? Poor Paddy Madden got a red arrow this week in our league. must have taken a -4. And so did Jason Wheel.
You got a great one. Well done, mate.
I did. I went up to 36th. I think by the looks of it, what did Jason Wheel do here? He took a minus 12 and they wanted any fixtures.
Look at that! Oh
my God!
Unlucky, Jason.
Oh, Jason! Oh no! He should have hit you for. He was
nearly 10 million for the world dollar.
Oh no!
Oh wow! Did Martin not tell you to just hit your free hit button? He was texting me about that. That would have cancelled out all of them, and he would have got your free hit back. So for someone like Cully. He's going to have to obviously just deal with the fact he's going to have Ward, Trippier, Cancelo, Williams, and Patterson. He'll have Martinelli, Pereira, Kane, Jesus, and Haaland. So he's still going to have 10 players. So even if it's one free transfer, he's just going to probably have to suck it up and transfer out his one remaining Liverpool player and get rid of Diaz for somebody else. Or you potentially get out of that Brighton defence, get rid of Webster. Depends how much money he's got in the bank, to be honest. So you can have a look at that as options. One of the things that I would say, what's he got in the bank? He's got $1 million in the bank. He's got enough money to make changes. If you have used your wild card and you're only going to put out probably 8 or less, then you're okay to. There's probably the only times I'd consider free hitting, but the free hit's going to come in handy later in the season. So try and navigate this without taking too much of a hit. Fixtures and captains. So before this crazy time has happened, we will have to think about it. We do have a Friday deadline. Just to throw another curveball in there. It's at 6:30 for Villa, Southampton, and Forest and Fulham. Then it's Wolves, Man City, which is the Saturday early kickoff. I know. Newcastle, Bournemouth, Spurs against Leicester, Brentford, Arsenal, and Everton, West Ham. Anybody thinking of not captaining Haaland this week?
Tempted with Jesus if I've still got him.
No, we won't.
I'll be tempted with Jesus if I've still got him.
Tempted. You've been tempted.
Wolves never concede that much. When's the last time Wolves conceded more than 1 goal in a game?
Right. Ladies and gentlemen, Tom Hughes will be captaining Haaland this week.
He's going to be so heavily captained.
Listen to Wolves' fixtures, right? 1-0, 0-0, 1-1, 2-1, 1-0, 0-0. Then there's never more goals in those games. It doesn't matter who they're playing. They just never.
So you're going Jesus.
So who are you captaining? Are you going Jesus?
Oh, I'll be captaining Haaland.
Yeah.
No, I might captain Jesus if I've still got him. I might captain Jesus.
I
How many goals has Haaland scored in his last 3 games? 8.
Something stupid. He's so.
Are you not convinced us to go Haaland? We're already going Haaland, Tom. You're convincing yourself to go Haaland.
Wait, in the last 4, he's scored 9 goals.
Anthony Gordon's the captain choice this week.
Yeah, why don't you show some backbone after you've been spurt?
I don't need to show backbone. I'm captain Haaland because he's got the most points in fantasy football.
Very good thought process, Scott. I also like the look of Mitrovic as a differential against Nottingham Forest, who have one of the worst defences in the league.
Are you going to captain Mitrovic?
I'm considering Isak against Bournemouth, actually.
Is my vibe
absolutely not. I'm 100% going for Haaland. But there are a couple of captains if you wanted to. To be fair to what you are saying there, Tom, Wolves have the best defence in the league, and it's the Saturday early kickoff.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the 2 negatives against Haaland. The positive for Haaland is it's Haaland.
I think keep an eye on tonight. Recording this on a Wednesday. You never know; he might get a knock. If he gets a knock, he could very easily get rested that game, couldn't he? And then we see where everyone's minerals are at. Because if he's just a 20-minute at the end of the Wolves game playing, I could easily be looking at Isak.
I know it's really. I know it sounds. And I hate saying this, but I almost want Haaland to just have like a little bit of a. May he play or may he not play? Like, he doesn't even have to have a niggle. He might even start and play 60 minutes. But I just want there to be a doubt there. So there's actually because otherwise he's just going to be one of the most. I mean, he was the most captain player in the game the week before last in history. I think he was like 6 million managers captained him. He was the most managers ever to captain anyone ever. And I hated this last season about Salah, and it was much easier for me because I was high up the league last year. So the Salah captain thing every week was actually really good for someone high up the leagues. It helped you secure your rank, and there wasn't massive differentials that could go against you. When you're doing rubbish, it's horrendous that you can't go differential captains. It stops you clawing back every time. It's really frustrating. Yes, we're on Haaland. I think it's probably Mitrovic versus Jesus versus Isak.
But if Haaland does get a knock, then Scott's captaining Gordon, you're captaining Mitrovic, and I'm captaining Jesus.
Yeah. If he
that or
gets
Isak, yeah.
if he gets an injury, oh yeah, Isak is my second one at the minute.
Yeah, I'm thinking I might favour him from Mitrovic actually.
All talk.
So I've told Tom in this podcast to definitely get Mitrovic over Isak, and then I'm like, but if Haaland gets a knock, I'm captaining Isak this week. Give Mitrovic.
Doesn't make any sense.
Oh, brilliant! Yeah, that's how confused we all are. So anyway, thank you everyone for tuning into this week's podcast, and in fact, it wasn't really a podcast. Thanks everyone for tuning into this week's ramble. As we discussed through the options, and hopefully it gave some people some ideas about what to do. I think the majority of people are wildcarding this week. So make sure you get your drafts done by the Friday deadline at 6:30. Thanks ever so much for joining me this week. As always, Scott.
No problem, mate.
Tom, thanks for turning up.
Oh dear.
Great stuff. Love you both lots. And I will see you for a podcast prior to game week 9, which is Saturday, the 1st of October. Thank you very much. Bye for now.